Hello, and welcome to today's session on what dyslexia looks like in a classroom and what can be done to address the difficulties dyslexics have. Caused by genetic and environmental factors, dyslexia is commonly referred to as a disorder, which makes it difficult for an individual to read or decode words, letters, and other symbols. It does not, however, impact on the intelligence of that person. Despite common beliefs, dyslexics do not find it difficult to see language but struggle to manipulate it. Articulation and word analysis cause them difficulty as a result of a phonological problem in processing language. So how do dyslexics actually process language in their brains? Our brains are divided into two hemispheres, the left and right sides. The former addresses analytical thought, language, and reading, whereas the latter deals with spatial abilities such as creativity, holistic thought, and intuition. Research has shown that the brains of dyslexics tend to rely on the right hemisphere, which means processing language takes much longer, especially when it comes to reading. However, those without dyslexia decode language using their left side, which causes them to decode language in a different way. The brains of dyslexics can get delayed in the frontal lobe as a result of this neurobiological malfunction. As a result, children may find it challenging to read and keep up with their peers. Identifying dyslexia in young children is not always easy because the symptoms are not always blatantly evident. Diagnosis can also be difficult for students who are studying in a second language. However, dyslexia can be diagnosed through a battery of tests focusing on memory, logical reasoning, spelling, vision, and reading-writing skills. Educational interventions can be put into place at mainstream schools for the majority of young children, though those with more severe symptoms may need to attend more specialist schools. 1 in 5 children suffer from dyslexia of varying degrees and so need extra time to process language. Interestingly, in a 2015 survey on dyslexic children, 87% of the parents who participated believed that their children had suffered both psychological and emotional distress due to the challenges they faced at school. Furthermore, 54% felt the schools had not made appropriate accommodations and consequently were ill-equipped to educate their children. Statements made by the children themselves seem to support these research findings too. The following common themes arose from student interviews to see what accommodations could be implemented and what teachers could do to respond to their needs. These learners wanted their teachers not to call on them to read aloud in class. Standing out in class made them not fit in. Their teachers to recognize that although they were slow to read, they were not lazy. They actually worked harder than their peers because they needed to approach information differently. To be allowed to use audiobooks on their iPads and other technology so they could listen to their books rather than read them. Their teachers to understand that if they fell behind in class, it was the dyslexia that was the cause and not their intellect. It needs to be said that a number of educational interventions and programs are available for children with dyslexia. These accommodations can range from being taught in a small group, in a regular class with a learning support teacher, to receiving one-to-one lessons with an expert teacher. Development may be slow because it involves intensive practice and systematic input. Most school interventions work on phonological skills, as research has shown that teaching phonics, the ability to recognize and process word sounds, can be beneficial in making changes to the neurological and psychological functioning of the brain to facilitate reading. In addition, if children are taught in a multisensory way, where they use more than one sense at a time, they will improve their reading and physically challenge the way their brain works. The Orton-Gillingham approach to reading is an example of a school program implemented to compensate for the kind of language processing difficulties that are a result of dyslexia. Based on multisensory and language approaches, it involves a great deal of interaction between the teacher and learner using a variety of input channels such as visual, auditory, and kinesthetic components. An example of this would be where a child is taught to see a letter, such as A, sound it out, and then draw it in the air all at the same time. This practice also focuses on understanding how individuals learn and process language. To sum up then, how can we as educators help children embrace their challenges? First and foremost, it is crucial to understand it from their perspective and see the world through their brains and not just through their eyes. And secondly, make accommodations where possible and use a variety of mediums to assist children with dyslexia to become more confident and independent readers. And that brings us to the end of today's session on dyslexia. If you would like to explore more on any of the topics discussed, click on the links provided at the end of this unit. As always, remember to observe what is happening in your classes and be a reflective practitioner.